Hello, everyone, and welcome to Picture the Scene podcast, hosted by me, Andrew.
And me, Rachel.
Now, please note, this is a true crime podcast, so listener caution is advised. So, how's it going today, Rach? What have you been up to since the last time we spoke?
Yeah, it's going good, thanks, Andrew. What have I been up to? Not much, really. Just indulging in a couple of podcasts and reading a book as the winter nights draw in. And I definitely do not recommend listening to true crime podcasts when now going out for evening walks on not well-lit streets.
No, I don't think that sounds too good. I'm a bit too much of a scaredy cat, so I don't think I'd do that one. So, I guess the question is, are you in the mood for some true crime?
I absolutely am because I'm safe, tucked up in my home with the doors locked. Let's go.
We don't know who's outside, but okay, let's do it. So before we do get on to the next episode, actually, I just want to give a shout out to Caprice over at the Unseen podcast. She's rapidly approaching her 4th anniversary for a podcast, and it's really hard to be consistently good for such a long period of time. It takes a lot of effort and skill, and she has it. And I suspect everyone listening to this already does listen to Caprice, given you all obviously got some amazing taste in podcasts. But if you haven't, do go and give her a listen. You won't be disappointed. And also, please do go subscribe and rate us if you like us, that is, wherever you can. We'd be more than grateful. We'd be more grateful, actually, than a can of links when Prince Andrew declared he doesn't ever sweat. Because I don't think you want to be near that naked body, would you? But we can be found. We can be found on all social medias. We're at ScenePod on Twitter and Instagram. That's at SCENEPOD. Or you can find us on Facebook by searching for Picture the Scene Podcast. So now that's out of the way with. If it's safe for you to do so, I'd like all of you listening to relax, to close your eyes and picture the scene. Today we're going to take you back to Sunday the 23rd of October, 1983, just over 28 years ago, to the village of Daw in South Yorkshire.
Now, can I just interrupt there, Andrew? I wish it was 28 years ago, but I think you'll find it's 38 years ago.
Oh, wow. My maths when I'm seeing this. I'll not edit it out because it's good to make me look imperfect sometimes. I am quite perfect.
It's not even bad mathematics. I honestly believe that, like, I still think the year 2000 was just a couple of years ago. I just think it's just a poor concept of time.
Now, do you know what I used to remember being a kid thinking, I'm giving my age away here, but thinking, wow, I'm going to be 20 in the year 2000. And now it's
quite depressing.
It's too long ago, yeah. So let me thank you for that, Rachel. So that's okay. So it's just over 38 years ago, and I'm going to take you to the village of Daw in South Yorkshire. Now, Daw is in a historic village with the earliest record of it being in the year 827, so that's longer than the year 2000. But nowadays, it's a wealthy suburb in the city of Sheffield.
No, didn't realise such a thing existed. Wealthy suburb in Sheffield.
I'll ignore that. See, as I come from Sheffield, I'll ignore that one. So on this particular day,
I'm so sorry.
It's fine. I know exactly what you mean because I come from Sheffield. But there is one or two areas. The Arctic Monkeys are from quite a posh area. Even they were students in quite a posh area. Anyway, I'm digressing. On this particular day, the morning temperature had started off quite low, going as low as 2 degrees Celsius or 35 degrees Fahrenheit. But by the time that mattered to the Latner family, it had risen to a respectable 11 or 12 Celsius or 51 to 53 degrees Fahrenheit. The Latners, actually it's the Leitners, so apologies for saying that wrong to begin with. The Leitners, Basil, who was a solicitor, and Avril, who was a doctor, were celebrating a joyful occasion that afternoon, which is why the temperature mattered. They were celebrating the wedding of their daughter Suzanne to an optician from Glasgow, Ivor Wolfe, that happened earlier in the day at a local synagogue, and they were hosting a reception for their daughter at their house. Now, I need your opinion on this one, Rage, because I'm not a parent yet, and you are. But I think watching one of your children in blissful happiness getting married must be such an amazing thing to do. Now, I know you've got a few years left to go before you can do that, but when I was writing this, I was thinking, you've probably imagined what that's like already. Have you?
Well, I'm not going to lie to you, Andrew. I'm going to definitely send my daughter off to a convent and she's going to behave until she's approximately in mid-30s, and then she can make decent life decisions and, spend most of her 20s behaving. No, I joke. I haven't given it too much thought, but it's for me, it will be just thinking now, things like shopping for the dress and, the day itself. Yeah, making sure that she's happy and has the best day of her life. And I think that goes for like any occasion, like graduating university or celebrating birthdays and things like that. Get excited about celebrating occasions for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I can't. I'll experience it one day, but yeah, it's. I think those moments as a parent, it's what you live for, isn't it?
Yeah,
To be able to pass it forward and see your kids happy.
yeah,
But
definitely.
so the lateness, once the reception was over, I suspect Basil and Avril, they would have been exhausted, but they would have been so happy. Their minds would have been so full of many fresh memories of their loved daughter's wedding. But unfortunately, those happy memories would soon be replaced by some that were the exact opposite, which, when you're listening to a true crime podcast, so to be expected. But I'd like to
Never
introduce. Sorry.
can never just be a nice. You know what you should do one day? Just write a script where nothing happens. Everything is just really blissful, very lovely, and every happy ending happens. The end.
We'll give it a go one day. I used to write cowboy stories, so maybe I'll just write a cowboy story.
No.
I would get zero
Go on.
listens ever again. But I'd like to introduce you to Arthur Hutchinson. Arthur was born in 1941 during the war in Hartlepool, and he was known to be the favourite of his mother, Louise, and she was very protective of him. Now, Arthur's half-brother Dino was quoted as saying this about him as a child. He was backward, you see. Everybody used to take the mickey out of him. He was trying to prove something all the time. Now, it's obviously not a very PC thing to say, but that is what he said. Now, it's been claimed by Colin Evans in his book, The Casebook of Forensic Science, that even at the young age of 7, he stabbed his sister with a pair of scissors. Now, so obviously Arthur maybe wasn't a very nice person from the very beginning. And when he was an early teen, he got himself a job as a farmhand, and that love of the land continued with him throughout his life, and he became a keen allotment user. And in his later teen years, he would be well known as a petty criminal. He would steal cars, change license plates, and lots of low-level crimes like that. But his crimes, they didn't stay low level. They escalated over the years, and they included burglaries and several sexual assaults. And in the late 1970s to the early 1980s, he served 5 years for carrying a firearm and the attempted murder of his half-brother Dino. So you can see the escalation there, and maybe that's why Dino didn't think too much of him, because he tried to kill him. But he'd actually, Arthur had not been out of. People do change, Rachel. And you said that you expect something that's going to happen here, but maybe listeners, Arthur's not the bad guy here. And he'd not been out of prison a huge amount of time when on the 20th of September of 1983, just under 4 weeks before the 23rd of October 1983, that I originally introduced you to, that he was arrested and taken to Selby police station on a suspicion of theft, burglary, and rape.
So he hadn't changed.
Well, no, he hadn't changed. But I wanted to give him a little bit of hope.
A tiny bit of hope.
Yes.
And then snatch it away.
Now, while he was at the police station on that day in September, he has to go to the toilet, and he subsequently jumped out of a second-story toilet window of the police station and escaped. He injured his knee in the process on some barbed wire that was around the top of a wall of the police station, but yeah, he escaped. And I imagine they've probably improved security since then. I hope so. But for 3.5 weeks, he was on the run from the police. He would later claim that he hid from the police by hiding in gutters and bushes and eating dandelions and roots. And How true that is, we'll never know. I can't imagine it turned into a 1980s version of Bear Grylls, but it could be true. 3.5 weeks after his escape, he was planning an armed robbery. So no, he didn't change. And he'd assumed he was doing it to help fund his life on the run. So he was targeting homes in the well-off village of Dore. And now maybe because he'd seen the reception party taking place, or maybe for other reasons, but he decided to target the home of the Leitners, Basil and Avril, and their children. So, but I want to skip to the next morning, actually, in the morning of Monday the 24th of October 1983. Now, some workmen had arrived at the Leitner house, and they were ready to dismantle the marquee that had been hired for the wedding reception. And what do you think they found when they went to dismantle the marquee?
I dread to think what they found, but I have read the script and I'm going to say some bodies. I'm just hopeful that the married couple weren't staying at the property and that back in 1983, it was definitely still a done thing to go and stay a night in a hotel in the honeymoon suite.
Well, let's find out. So what they did find was a woman who turned out to be the 18-year-old daughter of the Leitners, not the one who got married, but the bride's sister. And they found her in total distress. She was emotionally destroyed, and they also found an evidence of a bloodbath. So what exactly happened? What do you think happened, Rach? It's a metaphorical question because you know what happened, but what do you think happened, Rach?
Well, not no, if I pretend for a second that I didn't know and you just gave me those facts, I'd be saying that he planned a burglary and someone's disturbed him and he's gone on a frenzy and killed the dad, maybe in front of the sister. But yeah, I don't know. I don't get why she survives. But maybe you're going to tell us.
Maybe everyone survives, Rachel.
Maybe they do. Yeah.
But so let's see what happened. Now Hutchinson, he broke into the Leitner home with the intention of stealing. He broke in via a set of patio doors. Unfortunately, back then, I'm going to give you my useless knowledge here, Rachel. It's not in the script, but back then, patio doors were very easy to break into. All you had to do was lift them in a certain place, so you could actually lift them off the hinge and then just pull the door out.
Oh my
So,
God.
and most of the posh houses had patios doors because it was the in thing in the 80s. So it just made them a lot easier to break into. So he broke in. Not that our listeners need to know that. Unless you're planning to be a burglar, you have to go back 30 years because patio doors are not like that anymore.
Yeah, or you're not living in a really old house and now you're just setting alarm bells ringing with people thinking they're going to be broken into by crazy madmen.
Yeah, but if you are, don't worry, you've still got time to finish this podcast. So initially, he went to the kitchen, Hutchinson, and he ate some cheese from the fridge and he drank champagne from a glass or bottle. Now, Hutchinson, he never himself said what happened next, but the police were able to put it together from the scene of the crime. And for all you true crime buffs out there, this was one of the first crime scenes in the UK, at least, that filmed a crime scene as it was. And at the time, that was groundbreaking because it was very early 80s and video recording wasn't something that got done. Not a crime scene anyway. And so they deduced that Basil, the father, was killed first at the top of the stairs. And he was stabbed to death, probably on his way downstairs to investigate any noise. And his wife, Avril, she was brutally attacked, having been stabbed 26 times, and she had defensive marks on her arms, showing that she had put up a fight. And then their son, Richard, who was 28 years old, he was found stabbed to death, half on and half off his bed. So, very brutal. You've got the parents of the bride and the brother of the bride, all dead, stabbed to death. But then what did Hutchinson do? He turned his attention to their daughter, Nicola, or Nikki as she liked to be called. He didn't kill her. He went to her bedroom and he raped her. And after he raped her, he walked her downstairs and he made her step over her dead father's body so she could get downstairs. And then he continued to rape her at knife point 7 more times. And for reasons that we'll never know, you alluded to it earlier, he didn't kill Nikki. I think probably at times she probably wished that he did. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what it was like. But before I go any further, I just want to give you a small recap. So you've got a happy family at a moment in their lives where they are at their happiest. They're seeing someone they love getting married, a daughter and a sister. And they are then killed. The two parents and the son, with the youngest daughter raped, and while she may be alive, her life will never be the same again. I imagine she was 18 then, 38 years ago. That would be make her 56 now.
Yep.
So yeah, I can't. She's probably still having to live with that now. But can you guess what he got away with? Because you remember he didn't break in to kill. He broke into steal. So can you guess what the cost of all this damage was and evil that he brought into their lives, Rachel?
I mean, again, if I hadn't have read the script, knowing what I know, I'd probably be assuming it wasn't a lot, because you like he's just left a path of destruction. He's probably like feeling like adrenaline high, so he probably walked out empty-handed, or maybe with the bottle of champagne he was drinking, he just like nabbed that and maybe some cheese and left. Like,
Yeah, possibly, but it was reported, and I'll put a picture of the original newspaper article detailing this on our social media pages. But it was reported that he got away with a diamond watch and £30 in cash. Now, the equivalent in 2021 of £30 would equate to £81.67. So not a lot of money at all. And I think this makes it even worse because he had already been in police custody for rape and burglary, among other things, and he escaped to do this. So he escaped to burgle, to rape, and to kill.
this happens so often, doesn't it? Like, cases where people, had they have been prosecuted correctly or prosecuted at all, wouldn't have gone on to commit like even worse crimes, which just make it even worse for the victim, especially the daughter, and by all accounts the married couple that survived. Makes it worse for them as well, because this man shouldn't have been out on the streets hunting for a place to burgle.
Yeah, and we don't know where the daughter and her new husband went, but they may have gone off. I mean, the Leitners were a wealthy family, so they may have gone off on a honeymoon. And in 1983, there's no internet,
Yeah.
no mobile phones, so they could have been well underway in the honeymoon, or even when it finished, if they went abroad, they might not have
Yeah.
known till they got back, and then just found out all this happened.
God, that'd be tragic, wouldn't it? But like, what's strange to me, now that you've spoken about it, we can kind of dive into it. But it's strange how he just went and killed them. Like, what changed in his mind from just simply like raping a victim and and ransacking the house, which he'd obviously got previous history for, to killing, well, the father, he's disturbed him, but then he's gone upstairs and killed the mum and the brother.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we'll never know. There's lots of people speculating online. Um, it sounds like it's a classic power thing.
Yeah, or
He has
drugs
because he
maybe.
can. No, he wasn't. He wasn't a drug user.
No,
So
I find it like fascinating that, because most true crime podcasts that you listen to, somebody's got it in their DNA almost, that's their, like, they've got form, they've killed animals, or they've shown some sort of behavior. But then again, I'm talking myself out of this. He did try and kill his brother, didn't he? His half
yeah,
brother.
and he stabbed his sister when he was 7.
Yeah, so actually he did have form. He just didn't act on it for a number of years. It was just
And
dormant, wasn't
yeah,
it?
and he had a string of sexual assaults and rape and burglary. So
Yeah.
so after he had gotten what he wanted and done what he did, he escaped, and he sparked what was at the time a huge manhunt for him. Actually, at that time, while he was wanted, he was the most wanted person in the UK. Now, the police knew it was
Oh, no.
him because Nikki, the daughter, was brave enough to be able to give the police an accurate description of her attacker. And that must have been difficult, but in addition to the description, they had his palm print that was taken from the champagne glass that he drank out of when he broke into the house. So they had his palm print, so they knew it was him, and they had the description which matched the person who, when they matched the palm print up.
Yeah.
So, despite being in the national media everywhere, Hutchinson actually managed to evade justice for 39 days. And in those 39 days, he would actually call the police and local media up and he'd taunt them. And he did this a few times. He gave himself the nickname of the Fox, which was happily picked up by the media because they love things like that. And I actually have part of a recording of one of the calls if you want to listen to it, Rachel.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Hello, this is Hutchinson.
Hutchinson.
Yeah, the one that don't speak around 154. Tell you what, I've never left the area from Selby, right? I've never left the area from Selby. I've been here all this time. This place called Warstop, I don't even know where it is. The only time I've seen was when I'm living rough, like the police have said, the new one's living rough, that's what I'm doing, living rough.
Yeah.
Stealing out people's back gardens, cabbages and things like that. That's all I'm living. I sleep by day and I travel at night. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah.
That's been. That must be, you know who I am, don't you?
Sorry, mate, I can't understand.
I'm charged with burglary.
Yeah.
Right, so now you know who I am, don't you? I'm not a hoax.
No. Right.
So I'm not going to give myself up.
What did you think of that, Rach?
Yeah, like he's just escalated a lot now. He's gone like he had the high on power when he killed the 3 people in that house, and now he's like taunting the police. It's blows my mind. Yeah, he's just escalated really quickly, and now he almost feels invincible, doesn't he? They've got his name, they're hunting for him, and he's calling them up, just sprouting shit, basically.
Yeah. And now he did go on to say in that call, I don't have the best of the recording of it, but this is a transcription of it, like playing cat and mouse, or should I say fox on a trot. He was quoted as saying while he laughed, I'm making no comment on the triple killings. Let the police do what they want. I'm saying now, they knew how was finished, but makes no difference whether they shoot me for this or anything else. If they think I'm dangerous, let them think that. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. I'm still free, and that's the main thing. However crackers I might be, I've walked past them several times and they haven't even noticed me. Like I say, I'm a master of disguise. So it sounds like he really loved himself, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I just wonder as well, I do not condone it at all, but would they have had the death penalty in the 80s? Or was
No,
that abolished in like the...
that was many decades before.
Oh, right, okay, because he's almost like taunting to the state where he's like, oh, do whatever they want with me, i.e., send me off to the gallows kind of thing. But like, yeah, I was just curious about that because he feels almost invincible, doesn't he? The way he's behaving.
Yeah, definitely.
And actually, that poor girl as well, because I bet the press were as bad as they are in this day and age. He'd have made front page news, and
he
she
did.
sat there thinking, this man not only like punished me, but then took most of my family away, and now I have to look at his face in the paper. That must have been absolutely awful. Like, talk about adding salt to the wound.
Yeah, and she was only 18.
Oh,
Yeah, I think about that. So I know we like to think and pretend that we're fully grown up when we're 18, but we're still children, aren't we?
oh yeah.
So yeah. No, but luckily the police did catch him. And because why did they catch him? Now, if you remember, he was a favourite of his mum's, and he actually phoned his mum up to tell her that he was coming to visit her. And which is obviously, that's what you do when you're the most wanted man in England. You phone your mum up and say, I'm coming around to visit you for a cup of tea. So the police, they were recording her calls. So they caught him in a field, a turnip field, which is quite appropriate, near his home or near her home. Now, what
Can I
sort
just
of...
add here?
Yeah?
Sorry. Now, there's definitely a consistency with your scripts. And I would like to give them the title of somehow you've located the world's dumbest criminals. And they all seem to be in the UK and Ireland so far. Although I think we had one further afield, didn't we?
We had one in America, yeah.
Yeah, but honestly, these people just seem to have this capability of going above and beyond in leaving, stupid. Remember the guy that kidnapped the girl on the side of a motorway?
That was in Ireland, but yeah.
Yeah, insane. This guy just goes, "Oh yeah, mum, just fancy a brew. See your son."
Yeah, and
Yeah.
actually, there's a reason why I haven't done any more non-UK and Irish ones, because the American one was the third episode, and after we recorded that and I published it, and my wife listened to it, she told me off because she said to me, and she's going to listen to this, so she'll probably tell me off when she hears me saying this story. But she said to me, "No, this is supposed to be a focus on the UK and Ireland, and it's your third episode, and you've done one in America. Like, don't do another non-UK or Irish one for a while." So I was like, and obviously, I'm quite happily admit I don't wear the trousers in my family, so we will do maybe a few outside of the UK and Ireland, but not for a while because she's
Not for a
getting
while.
sometimes.
Yeah, but I'm sure there's plenty more dumb criminals that we can find some great true crime stories on the UK and Ireland. So
They're not all
that's the
dumb.
task.
They're not all dumb. I've got a short list of about a couple of dozen, which I'm working my way towards. So
yeah, and do you know what? I'm not even doing it justice there. There's just elements of stupidity, isn't there? Where, yeah, there's just the guy who invited the police in to see the blood in his kitchen with the knife with his wife's blood on. Yeah, there's just elements of like, what are you thinking?
yeah, and maybe also elements of arrogance. Do you think?
That too. Yeah, it's not stupidity, it's just arrogance, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe that's a common theme. You're arrogant enough to kill because you think you might get away with it.
Yeah, you could say that. That's definitely a good spin on it.
But you mentioned this earlier, like what sort of man was he? So what sort of man was Arthur before the killings? What was he like? Now we know, I mentioned his crimes, but what we did know, that those who knew him, what did they have to say about him? And you often hear people describing killers as someone who is nice or helps out or similar. And we did that with the chap who killed Justin Valdez in Ireland. He was described, and we had quotes from his neighbours saying he was a lovely guy, he helped me out when it snowed. So what did Arthur's friends and family have to say? Now, it seems like we was right. Arthur was bad from the start. Let's not forget that as a child, at 7, he stabbed his sister, and then after that, his half-brother, he tried to kill. He went to prison for attempting to murder. And this is what his half-brother had to say about him. And I'm going to just use this previous quote before, but he was backward, you see. Everyone used to take the mickey out of him. He was trying to prove something all the time. So just remind you what he said earlier. But then it wasn't just, because you think maybe his half-brother had something against him, because obviously he tried to kill him. But it wasn't just him. When he left school, a man who worked with him, George Jobson, was quoted as saying this: there was an undercurrent all the time, and you could tell he wasn't genuine, that inwardly he was violent. Now, George went on to describe a situation in which Arthur used to walk around with a 5-foot stick, and he'd behave aggressively, actually territorial, around the women of the area. And so George asked him to control himself. And George said this about the incident: he said he could kill me with one blow. And imagine that, you say, asking someone just to calm down, they say, and I could kill you with one blow. It would scare me.
Yeah, definitely.
And George described him as being very territorial around women. And apparently he was quite appealing to women. His Dino, his half-brother, who I mentioned earlier, had this to say about that: I can only say what I saw. I don't know what it was, but he had a lot of women. They were queuing up. In 1968, after several relationships, he did actually get married. And you'd think that after maybe marriage, it might change him as a person, but no, he didn't. He scared his ex-wife so much that even 30 years, well, that's my maths. So actually, it's not my maths because she was quoted 30 years afterwards. So that even 30 years after she got divorced from him, and he was in prison, she still wanted to remain anonymous. So that shows the fear that she had. And this is what she had to say. For 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks, he was charming, but he could change, and he just turned. I was terrified. He kicked me from here to hell. I'm his wife. He used to rape, and rape me. That's what he did. So imagine that as a... I can't even imagine. And she had to... Sorry.
No, I was going to say, again, just to like add insult to injury, that wouldn't have even been a crime in the 80s. Like, you were allowed to essentially rape your wife, you know, or vice versa. But that wasn't recognised as actual crime. It's only in like the last maybe 10 years, maybe less, that's been identified as criminal activity, which is insane. But yeah, that woman
crazy.
wouldn't have been able to go to the police and say, oh, you know, police officer, you need to arrest my husband, he raped me, because they'd just like laughed her at the station.
I actually can imagine that happening, even though it's depressing to think about.
Yeah.
But,
and yeah, it probably affected her as well to like not get married again, or even trust or meet anybody.
It definitely affected her because she wanted to stay anonymous 30 years after it happened.
Yeah.
And she had to endure that marriage for 3 years as well before she could escape it. And we say escape it. Some people say, oh, why didn't she leave straight away? But you know it's not that simple. And especially at that time when it was even harder for women. And that poor woman, she must have gone through hell. And I mean, I don't think you could think of anything else other than that. Do you?
No, I believe like that she probably didn't realize she was in it until she was too far in it. Like, you hear loads of stories about how charming people can be in the first couple of weeks or months, and then once they're under your skin, got you trapped, they just turn, and then you're kind of trapped. Especially again if she was like living off of his wage, or you know, she was away from her family, she would have felt completely isolated and felt like she had to put up with him. But if I were her, in this situation, I'd probably want to stay anonymous as well, because you just wouldn't want to be the person that was married to that horror. You know, especially the British press have had a great time joking about him on the run. Like, you know, it would just be unthinkable, like what your work colleagues might be saying about you, or people that live near you. Oh, she used to be married to him. Like, what must she be like?
She must
Like,
have known what he was like and stuff like that.
yeah, you just want to distance yourself so far from that.
But yeah, no, you're right, because even she says here, like, for the first 2 weeks, she's talking to the first 2 weeks of their marriage, he was charming. So he was fine to her, he got married to her, and then he changed. So you're exactly right. Once he knew he had her trapped, and it was fear as well. Don't forget, like, when someone does that, when someone rapes you consistently, it sounds like this was just what he did over and over. It's going to be so much fear. I think some people, when they look at it from the outside, and some of the lesser intelligent people go, oh, why didn't she just leave? I don't think they quite can grasp what fear does to a person.
And that's the thing, like, these people are intelligent people, they're in normal adult relationships, but emphasis on the word normal, and this is an abnormal relationship. And that's why people they can't even put themselves in that position, because it's unthinkable, it's unimaginable what these people do, and like their behavior as well. They make people, like, I've had a friend go through this situation, and they make my friend, he made her believe she was crazy, like to the point where she was like, you know, thinking about admitting herself to psychiatric care unit, because she was so forgetful and she was so careless and all of these things. He just brainwashed her basically, and she didn't even realize it was happening. So yeah, it really is unthinkable until you watch it happen, and you think, wow, gosh, yeah, like you can't empathize, because these situations are just so abnormal, so far from a normal healthy relationship that most adults are in or have been in.
exactly. Now, let's get back to Arthur. So, what actually happened? Well, at his trial, he actually pled not guilty, and he actually, believe it or not, he blamed a reporter for the killings. So there was a reporter that, after he was arrested, went round to speak to his mother, obviously for a newspaper article,
Yeah.
and he didn't like this. So the reporter was in the courtroom when the trial was happening. So he took the stand, and he actually blamed the reporter. Said that's the man that killed these women,
Oh my
the
God.
wife and the two, and their family members. So that's crazy. But obviously, the reporter didn't kill anyone, and
No.
Arthur was found guilty, and the judge gave him 18 years. But was actually at the time quoted as saying, "In this instance, life should mean life," and it did mean life, because his tariff was actually changed by the Home Secretary to a whole life tariff, meaning that he wouldn't be able to ever be released. Now, his sentence is actually quite interesting, which is why I mentioned it. I don't normally go into these details, but he was the first person to actually challenge a whole life tariff, and he challenged it at the High Court, at the Court of Appeal, and he challenged it all the way up to the European Courts of Appeal. And he was challenging it under the challenge that it breached his human rights.
Oh my God.
And because the right to what's the word I'm looking for? The right to have an end to his punishment. So, and you'll be glad to hear at every stage, even from the High Court all the way up to the European Courts, his appeals were rejected, with a final decision stating that it was a right of the British system to give him a whole life tariff as a sentence. And he's actually still alive today, and he's now 80 years old. So he's been in prison the last 38 years, which is probably the best place for him. So what are your thoughts on this one, Rach? It was a little bit of a different one, but it was very cruel and evil, if you ask me. What do you think?
Yeah, just completely unnecessary, along with a lot of other true crime stories. It just feels really pointless, like, especially when actually just roll back to what he took from the house, £81 in this day's money,
Yeah,
and
I
a
watched
diamond
what he was
watch,
so
which
yeah.
he probably never intended to sell and probably didn't take care of either. So really pointless crime. He's dragged a family through hell and back and taunted police. Like, what a horrible man.
Yeah, I know exactly. I mean, no murder is acceptable, no matter
No.
what some people online say. But sometimes you can see why it happened. So if there's people arguing and it gets out of hand, or even if it's a robbery gone wrong, like an armed robbery, I mean, where it's like a bank robbery or something.
Yeah.
But you can see how it got to that stage. But in this instance, I mean, I'm imagining this here, but I'm guessing it was a big house that the Leitners lived in. They were a wealthy family, so he would have had to be making some noise, almost on purpose, or like he didn't care for it to be heard. And you also have to think the father, Basil, was killed at the top of the stairs.
Yeah.
So that
He's
means
made
that
his way out the kitchen.
so that means that he's either was on his way upstairs anyway when he knew the family was in there, or if they, and you'd imagine I'd probably do this, you'd probably shout, "Who's there?" or "I'm coming down the stairs." And a normal burglar, a normal robber, they would run, they would escape.
Yeah.
But he chose to get a kitchen knife from the kitchen and go and kill them instead. So there's no logic or rhyme behind it. There's no
That says a lot as well. I hadn't even thought about that. There's like that fight or flight, right? And if you really feel the need to burgle a house for cash so that you can live your life on the run, then you do what you need to do. But if you get disturbed, and there's a clear exit, aka the patio doors he's just taken off, you run, and you regroup and think about your plan. He's calculated those murders, because he's in that moment that you could have just fled. he's grabbed the kitchen knife and kind of gone on the rampage, hasn't he? And it's just nasty. And unfortunately, it's crimes like this that you still read about today.
Yeah.
Just pointless.
Exactly. So, thank you everyone for listening. And for one last time, I'd like to relax, to close your eyes and picture the scene. You've worked hard all your life, and that moment comes when you can create memories of a lifetime. Can you sit back and enjoy it? Or should you be worried about what's to happen? So, thank you, Rachel. And thank you everyone for listening. We do say this every time, and we'll continue to say it, but please do give us feedback. It's all welcome, as is that subscription, wherever you listen to your podcasts. So thank you, goodbye, and God bless.
Goodbye.